Welcome. Settle in. There is nothing to do now except be here and breathe and listen. Let your shoulders come down, away from your ears. Let your jaw soften, just a little. Let your hands rest wherever they've landed, palms open or gently curled, whichever feels easier tonight. If these gentle journeys bring you peace, consider leaving a kind word, sharing this moment with another, or joining our growing flock of quiet dreamers. Comment your favorite animal and I might include it in the next video. Tonight we're gonna spend some time with hippos. Slow, heavy, ancient animals who pass most of their lives half submerged in warm, still water, doing very little in particular. They are, in their own way, rather good teachers of rest. We'll move through 10 small pieces of knowledge, laid down one after another, like smooth stones set into the bed of a shallow river. You don't need to remember any of them. Remembering isn't the point. The point is simply to let a quiet voice fill the room while your body does the slow work of letting G. Oh, if your attention drifts, that's perfectly fine. If you fall asleep long before the end, better still. That's what this is, FO. Or, let's baggy. And the name itself is a small poem. Hippopotamus comes to us from ancient Greek, from hippos, meaning horse, and potamus, meaning river. Put them together and you have quite literally river horse. Imagine the people who first chose that name, standing at the edge of a wide, brown, slow-moving river, watching a great dark shape rise and sink and rise again. Not quite a horse, not quite anything they had words for, and so they made a word out of two things they already knew, and the word has stayed with us for thousands of years. River, or say it in your mind if you like. Let it settle. It's a soft phrase, nothing sharp in it, nothing that catches. Just the sound of something large and unhurried moving through water in the dark. And of course, almost nobody says the whole word. We say hippo, just those two syllables. The nickname arose largely for the simplest of reasons. The full name is long and difficult to spell, and most people, given the choice, will reach for the shorter, rounder version. There is something quietly charming about that. One of the largest and most formidable animals on the continent, and we've shortened its name into something that sounds almost like a lullaby. Hippa, 2 beats, like a heartbeat heard from underwater. You've probably said that word 100 times in your life without ever once thinking about where it came from. And now you know. And knowing it costs you nothing and asks nothing of you, and you can let it go again. You're doing this beautifully, by the way. Why? There's no skill required here. Just the willingness to lie still and let sound wash over you, and you're already doing that. Notice how little effort it takes. Notice that your breath is happening entirely on its own, without you needing to manage it. It has been doing that all day, all your life, patiently in the background. Let it keep going. You don't have to help. Here is something that surprises almost everyone. Hippos are currently classified as vulnerable, Their numbers have declined through habitat loss and hunting, and they occupy less of the continent than they once did. That's the sober part, and it's worth knowing gently rather than heavily. But here's the surprise. If you go looking for a hippo's closest living relatives, you will not find them on land at all. You'll find them in the ocean. The hippo's nearest kin are the cetaceans, the whales, and the dolphins. Somewhere in the deep past, an ancestor shared by both took a different path. One lineage stayed in the rivers and grew heavy and gray and mud-loving. The other went out into the open sea and became something that sings. Think of that softly. Somewhere out in the dark Atlantic tonight, a whale is moving slowly through cold water. And somewhere in Africa, a hippo is resting in a warm, shallow pool. Distant cousins, both of them holding their breath, both of them completely at ease in the water. There are only two kinds of hippo left in the world. There is the common hippo, Hippopotamus amphibius, the large one, the one you picture immediately, wide-mouthed and barrel-bodied, lying in a river with only its eyes and ears above the surface. And then there is the pygmy hippo, Coeropsis liberiensis, a much smaller, quieter creature found in the forests of West Africa. It lives among trees rather than open water, and it keeps largely to itself. Where the common hippo is a river animal, the pygmy hippo is a forest animal. Shy, private, moving through green shadow and leaf litter. Two species, that's all. An entire family narrowed down to two, one in the water and one in the woods. You're doing so well. There's nowhere else you need to be right now. Nothing waiting for you tonight that can't wait until morning. The day is finished, and it doesn't need any more from you. Let the weight of your body sink another inch into the bed. Let it be heavy. Heavy is safe. Heavy is what a hippo knows best. Wild common hippos live across sub-Saharan Africa. They're found in rivers and lakes, in slow channels and reedy margins, and in the floodplains that stretch out alongside them. Wherever there's water deep enough to hold them and grass close enough to reach, hippos have found a way to make a life. Picture one of those places for a moment. A wide, flat river under a hot sky. Reeds along the bank. The water moving so slowly it barely seems to move at all. Egrets standing perfectly still in the shallows. And here and there, low dark humps breaking the surface. A family of hippos, doing nothing much, waiting for evening. It's a landscape built entirely out of patience. They are extraordinarily large animals. Hippos are the third largest land mammals alive today, after elephants and after white rhinos. An adult male typically weighs somewhere between 1,500 and 1,800 kilograms, and the very largest can reach around 3,200. They grow to roughly 5 meters in length and stand about 1.5 meters at the shoulder, which means that a hippo standing beside you would be about as tall as you are and many, many times heavier. And yet in water, all of that weight simply disappears. The river takes it. A hippo that would sink deep into soft ground on land becomes almost weightless once it's submerged. able to walk along the riverbed in long, slow, drifting steps, half floating, held up by nothing but water. That's the feeling. That's what we're aiming for tonight. All that weight and none of it being carried. You're doing this exactly right. Feel how the mattress is holding you, completely without any effort from you at all. Like water holding something heavy. You don't have to keep yourself up. Something else is doing it. Let your legs be heavy. Let your arms be heavy. Let your face be soft. Hippos live together in groups. A typical group has around 10 to 20 individuals, usually one dominant male, several females, and their young. The females and calves rest close together in the shallows, often piled almost on top of one another, dozing through the heat of the day. The dominant male holds a stretch of water as his territory, and he defends it seriously. Most of a male hippo's conflict happens in the water. Great open-mouthed displays, deep rumbling calls, and occasionally real fights. But for the most part, the days pass without incident. Mostly there is just the sun and the water and a great many hippos resting in it. And there is no single word for a group of them. There are three. You can call it a herd. You can call it a pod. Or most wonderfully, you can call it a bloat. A bloat of hippos. It's such a comfortable, well-fed, entirely unbothered word. It sounds exactly like what it describes. A cluster of enormous round animals lying in warm, shallow water with nothing at all to do. If you take only one thing from tonight, let it be that. A bloat of hippos. That's lovely. You're sinking nicely now. There's no need to stay awake for the rest of this. If sleep is arriving, let it. You can go whenever you like, mid-sentence, mid-word. Nothing here needs finishing. The pygmy hippo lives a very different sort of life. Where common hippos crowd together in bloats and defend their patch of river, pygmy hippos are largely solitary. They aren't territorial in the same way. They move alone through the forest, quietly, keeping their own company, crossing paths with one another only occasionally. One species that sleeps in a heap. One species that walks alone through the trees, both perfectly content. And here is the last one for tonight, and it might be my favorite. Hippos spend the day in the water, but at night they come out to feed. They travel inland, sometimes several kilometers, following well-worn paths to their grazing grounds. And because generations of hippos have grazed those same patches over and over, the grass there is cropped short and even and soft. People call them hippo lawns. Neat green clearings in the African dark, kept trim by enormous animals moving slowly through the night, cropping grass in the moonlight. Nobody planted them. Nobody mows them. They simply appear, tended year after year by the patient repetition of hippos. Hold that picture as you drift. Warm night air, tall grass giving way to a smooth, dark lawn. Slow, heavy shapes moving quietly across it. No hurry anywhere. We learned that hippopotamus means river horse in ancient Greek, and that we shortened it to hippo mostly because the long version is hard to spell. We learned that hippos are vulnerable and that their closest living relatives are improbably whales and dolphins. We met the two surviving species, the great common hippo of the rivers and the small, solitary pygmy hippo of the West African forests. We traveled across sub-Saharan Africa, through lakes and floodplains, and found out that hippos are the third largest land mammals on Earth, heavy beyond imagining on land, and almost weightless in water. We sat with a family of 10 or 20, resting in the shallows under a watchful male. We learned that such a gathering can be called a herd or a pod or a bloat, and we followed them out at night along old paths to those quiet clipped clearings called hippo lawns. That's all. Nothing to hold on to. Let it all go soft at the edges. Rest now. There are more hippos waiting whenever you're ready for them. That's all right. There's no hurry either way. Whether you drift off in the next minute or the next hour, the night will hold you just the same. We left our hippos out on their moonlit lawns, cropping grass in the dark. Now let's follow them back into the water and stay there a while, because the water is where hippos truly belong, and it's where almost everything interesting about them happens. Let your breathing slow to match it. Nothing sharp, nothing sudden, just long, easy movements in and out like something large turning over in a warm river. Hippos are semi-aquatic specialists, and they've built their whole day around it. Through the bright hours, when the sun is high and hard, they stay in the rivers and lakes, resting, floating, standing, barely moving at all. And their skulls are shaped for exactly this. The eyes, the ears, and the nostrils all sit high on the head, arranged along the very top, so that a hippo can lower its entire enormous body beneath the surface and still see, still hear, still breathe. From above, all you'd notice is 3 small interruptions in the water. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and nothing else. An animal the size of a car, almost entirely hidden, watching the world from just below the line of the water. And when it does go under fully, the water is kept out. The nostrils close, the ears fold shut. Both happen automatically the moment the head drops beneath the surface. A small, precise piece of engineering in an animal that is otherwise mostly bulk. There's something restful in imagining it, that gentle sealing off, the outside world reduced in an instant to muffled green light and the soft pressure of water on skin. No sound, no air, nothing coming in. You can do a version of that yourself right now without moving at all. Just let the room recede a little. Let the edges of things go soft. You're doing this so well. There's a kind of patience in simply lying here and listening, and you've found it. Nothing is being asked of you. Nothing needs deciding tonight. Let your forehead smooth out. Let the space between your eyebrows go loose. Let your tongue rest away from the roof of your mouth. These are small things, and they cost nothing, and the body notices every one of them. Here's something that surprises people. For all their time in the water, hippos don't actually swim. They don't float either. They're too dense. So instead, they walk. They stand on the riverbed, and they move along the bottom in long, slow, drifting steps, pushing off gently, gliding forward, settling down again. In deeper water, they bound off the bottom in a kind of unhurried underwater leap, rising, falling, rising again. It isn't swimming and it isn't running. There's something slower and stranger than either. A very heavy animal moving through a world that has taken almost all of its weight away, and they can stay down there a long time. A hippo can typically hold its breath for around 5 minutes. Some reports say closer to 7. That's a long, quiet stretch of time beneath the surface, with the ears sealed and the nostrils shut and nothing to do but stand there in the cool green. They even sleep underwater. And this is the part one find genuinely lovely. They don't have to wake up to breathe. A reflex takes over. The body rises on its own, surfaces, takes a breath, and sinks back down. All without the hippo ever coming out of sleep. Imagine that. Sleeping so deeply that your body simply handles everything for you over and over all night long, and you never once have to surface into thought. That's very close to what's available to you now. Because your body already does this. It has been breathing for you all evening while you weren't paying attention. It will keep going all night without instruction, without effort, whether you're aware of it or not. You can hand it over. You can stop supervising. There is nothing left tonight that requires you to be awake for it. Hippos also make their own sunscreen. Their skin secretes an oily fluid that starts out colorless and then turns a deep reddish orange, which is why, for a very long time, people said that hippos sweat blood. They don't. It isn't blood and it isn't really sweat. It's a substance called hipposudoric acid, and it does several jobs at once. It shields the skin from the sun, keeps that skin moisturized, and it works as an antimicrobial, helping wounds stay clean in muddy, crowded water. One secretion doing the work of a sunblock, a lotion, and an antiseptic. A hippo lying in a shallow pool at midday, glossy and faintly red in the light, wearing something it made itself. But it isn't quite enough on its own. The red secretion helps a great deal, and still a hippo can't simply live out in the open air. If it stays out of the water too long, the skin dries and begins to crack, which is the real reason for all that soaking. It isn't laziness, and it isn't only the heat. The water is a requirement. It's the thing that keeps a hippo whole. Every day, the river gives it back its softness. There's a quiet lesson in there somewhere, and you don't have to look for it. Just let it sit. You're sinking beautifully now. If your thoughts have wandered off somewhere else entirely, that's fine. That's often the last thing that happens before sleep. You don't need to bring them back. You don't need to follow them either. Just let them go where they're going. Heavy arms, heavy legs, slow breath. Now, here is my favorite thing about hippos, and it's about sound. Hippos call to each other both in the air and underwater, and they are the only mammals known to make what are called amphibious calls. Sounds that work across the boundary between water and air at the same time, coupling through both. so that a hippo with its head half submerged can be heard by animals above the surface and below it in a single call. No other mammal is known to do this. Whales sing beneath the water. Elephants rumble through the air and the ground. Hippos do something else again. They speak across the line that divides the two. And most of it happens where we can't hear it. Field studies in Tanzania found that something like 80% of hippo vocalizations take place underwater, which means that a river that seems perfectly silent to us, flat, still, nothing happening, may in fact be full of conversation. Think of that as you lie there, a quiet afternoon on a wide brown river. Nothing visible but a few dark backs and the occasional flick of an ear. And beneath the surface, constantly, a slow exchange of sound passing back and forth between animals who never need to lift their heads to say it. They are also extremely loud. Some hippo calls reach around 115 decibels. To put that somewhere useful, it's roughly what you'd experience standing about 4.5 meters from a bank of concert speakers. An animal that spends its day doing almost nothing, in almost complete outward stillness, is capable of producing a sound that would fill a concert hall. All that quiet with all that voice inside it. You don't need to picture the loudness, just picture the depth of it. A low sound moving out through water, spreading, softening. Reaching the far bank is something you'd feel more than hear. And the range of what they say is wider than you'd expect. Hippos bellow. They roar. They grunt and growl and moan. There's a deep wheezing honk that carries for a kilometer or more across open water. And there is a high, strange, almost horse-like neighing that comes out when a hippo is attacked. A sound that seems to belong to a different animal entirely. Bellows, roars, grunts, growls, moans. Most of them made underwater, in the dark, in the cool, by animals lying still on a riverbed. You're doing so well to have stayed with me this long. You can let go now. Nothing is unfinished. Nothing needs your attention. The river carries on without anyone watching it. And so does the night, and so will tomorrow. We learned that hippos are built for the water. Eyes, ears, and nostrils set high on the skull, so they can see and hear and breathe, while nearly everything else stays hidden. We learned that those ears and nostrils close automatically when they go under. We found out that hippos don't swim and don't float. They walk along the riverbed instead, weightless and slow. We learned they can hold their breath for around 5 minutes, and that they sleep underwater, surfacing to breathe by reflex without ever waking. We met the reddish oil their skin produces, hipposudoric acid, a sunscreen, moisturizer, and antimicrobial all at once, though not enough on its own to keep the skin from cracking if they stay out of the water too long. And we listened to amphibious calls that travel through water and air together, unique among mammals. To the finding that around 80% of hippo vocalizations happen beneath the surface. To calls reaching 115 decibels. And to the whole strange chorus of them. Bellows and roars and grunts and moans, and that high neighing cry. Let all of it go. None of it needs keeping. Rest now. The water is warm, the night is long, and there are more hippos waiting. Still with me. Good. The sun has gone down on our river now, and that changes everything. The water that held the hippos all day slowly empties, and the land takes over. This next stretch is about what hippos do after dark, where they walk, what they eat, and the surprisingly elaborate ways they tell one another who they are and where they belong. Let your breath lengthen. Let the bed take a little more of your weight than it had a moment ago. There's nowhere to be. At dusk, the hippos leave the water. They graze for 4 or 5 hours through the night, and they cover real distance doing it, sometimes as much as 10 kilometers before returning. Over the course of a night, a single hippo will eat something in the region of 35 to 50 kilograms of grass, and they do it almost without teeth. A hippo grazes with its lips, broad, muscular, and astonishingly precise, closing around a mouthful of grass and tearing it off close to the ground, over and over, hour after hour in the dark. That's the sound of a hippo night. Not roaring, not splashing, just the soft, steady tearing of grass, somewhere out in the black, for hours. And their stomachs hold a reserve. A hippo can carry roughly 2 days' worth of grass inside it at any given time. A slow internal store that keeps working long after the grazing has stopped. Under real pressure, when conditions are hard, a hippo can go as long as 3 weeks without eating at all. There's something steadying about that. A body designed to hold on, to carry enough quietly so that a difficult stretch can pass without panic. You are carrying enough too. You've done what today needed. The rest keeps. You're doing this beautifully. Notice that you don't have to concentrate to listen. The words are arriving whether you follow them or not. You can let them blur at the edges. You can lose the thread entirely and it makes no difference at all. Let your shoulders drop one more time. Let your hands go completely still. All that nightly walking leaves a mark on the land. Generations of hippos traveling the same routes from water to grazing ground, night after night, were deep channels into the earth, the well-known hippo paths. 2 parallel grooves, worn smooth, running inland from the water's edge. And those paths do more than help hippos get around. When the rains come, water runs along them. They become channels. They carve out small pools and cleared corridors that fill and connect, and fish move into them, and insects, and everything that follows fish and insects. Hippos are, without any intention at all, landscape architects. Simply by walking the same way home every night, they build small worlds for other creatures to live in. They are, for the most part, plant eaters, but not entirely. Hippos have been documented eating carrion, feeding on animals that have already died, and, in rarer cases, on other hippos. It's uncommon, and it's not well understood, and it doesn't fit the picture most of us carry of a placid grass-eating river animal. But wild animals are rarely as tidy as our categories for them. A hippo is mostly a grazer and occasionally something else, and both of those things are simply true. Let that one pass by without holding on to it. You're doing so well. Nothing here needs your judgment. Nothing needs sorting into good or bad tonight. Facts can simply arrive and move on, like things drifting past on a slow current. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breath go out a little longer than it comes in. Now, hippos have a rather remarkable way of leaving messages. It's called muck spreading. As a hippo defecates, it spins its short, flat tail rapidly back and forth, scattering the dung in a wide arc across the ground, the vegetation, and the water behind it. It's efficient in a way that's almost comic. A single, brief, thoroughly committed motion, and an enormous area is covered. And it isn't waste. It's information, because hippos can read it. Individual hippos can tell a familiar animal from a stranger simply by smelling dung. They use scent to recognize members of their own group and to identify outsiders. A whole social map, written in something we'd walk straight past. Think of what that means for a hippo moving through the dark. It isn't navigating a blank landscape. Every path, every bank, every marked patch of grass carries a signature. This one belongs to someone I know. This one doesn't. They live inside a world of scent the way we live inside a world of faces. You're sinking nicely now. You don't need to picture any of this clearly. Vague is fine. Half-formed is fine. A blurred impression of warm, dark grass and slow-moving shapes is more than enough. Let it get vaguer still. So the tail spinning has a purpose beyond simply spreading things out. Dung showering broadcasts a hippo's scent across the widest possible area, and it leaves a visible mark as well. A clear, unmistakable statement written into the landscape. Anyone passing through will smell it, and anyone passing through will see it. It's a way of saying, I am here, and I have been here, and this is mine. Said without a sound, and without needing to be present to say it. And between males, it becomes something formal. Dung showering is ritualized at the edges of territory. Two bulls meeting at a boundary will each perform it, deliberately at that precise spot. A kind of ceremony conducted along an invisible line that both of them agree upon. Most of the time, that's the whole encounter. No fighting, no injury, just two enormous animals standing at a border, performing the same gesture, and then turning and going back the way they came. An argument settled entirely by tail. You're doing this exactly right. There's nothing to settle tonight. No lines to hold, no ground to defend. Everything can stay exactly where it is until morning. Let your legs be heavy. Let your face be soft. Territory is advertised in other ways too. A bull hippo announces ownership through a whole vocabulary of display. Ritualized defecation, urination, and a set of dominance gestures that are largely about looking as large and as unbothered as possible. The great open-mouthed yawn is one of them. It looks like sleepiness, but it isn't. It's a display, a slow reveal of tusks, a statement made silently and unmistakably. There are splashes, too. A bull driving his head into the water and throwing up a wall of spray, just to be noticed. Nearly all of it is theater. Nearly all of it works. And here's the thing about those territories. They exist only in the water. A bull holds a stretch of river or lakeshore and defends it seriously. Typically 50 to 100 meters of river, or 250 to 500 meters along a lake. But it ends at the waterline. On land, out on the grazing grounds at night, there are no territories at all. Bulls that would confront one another in the river will graze near each other in the dark without incident. It's as though the whole social order dissolves at the water's edge and reassembles again at dawn. All that seriousness is left behind in the river overnight, waiting to be picked up in the morning. You can leave things at the water's edge too. Whatever you were carrying today, it doesn't have to come with you into the night. You can set it down where you are and pick it up tomorrow if you still want it. Most of it you won't. We followed the hippos out at dusk, grazing for 4 or 5 hours, walking up to 10 kilometers, and cropping 35 to 50 kilograms of grass with nothing but their lips. We learned they can carry about 2 days' worth of food in the stomach, and can last as long as 3 weeks without eating when conditions are hard. We watched their nightly routes where deep paths into the land, channels that fill with water and become small habitats for fish and other creatures. And we learned that these mostly herbivorous animals have, on occasion, been recorded eating carrion and even each other. Then we spent a while in the strange, elaborate world of hippo communication. Muck spreading, that wide arc of scattered dung. The ability to recognize a familiar animal from a stranger by smell alone, and dung showering as a way of marking territory both by scent and by sight, performed most formally between rival males, right at the border. We met the bulls advertising ownership through ritual defecation, urination, yawns, and splashes. And we learned that all of it applies only in the water. 50 to 100 meters of river, or a few hundred meters of lakeshore, and that on land at night none of it applies at all. Let all of it go now. None of it needs keeping. Rest. The grass is being eaten somewhere in the dark, quietly, and none of it requires you. We're back at the water. Morning has come round again on our river, and the hippos have returned from their grazing to settle into the shallows for the day. And when you watch a group of them closely, really watch for hours the way researchers do, you start to see that what looks like a random heap of animals is nothing of the kind. There's an order to it, a quiet, careful, long-running arrangement that everyone in the water understands. Let yourself get comfortable. Let your breathing slow. Inside a pod, hippos sort themselves. They segregate by sex and by status. The females rest together, often with their calves pressed close among them. The young bachelor males gather in their own loose cluster, off to one side. And the territorial bull, the one who holds this stretch of water, keeps largely to himself. Nobody enforces this with much drama. It simply is how the water arranges itself, day after day. Everyone knows their place in the pool and settles into it and goes to sleep. And the bachelors are allowed to stay. This surprises people because the popular picture of a dominant bull is of an animal who drives off every rival on sight. but he doesn't. Younger males are tolerated in his territory, sometimes for years, on one condition: they must defer, they must behave, and they must keep away from the females. Stay respectful, stay at a distance, and there's room for you here. It's a more generous arrangement than you'd expect from an animal with that reputation. A place made quietly for the young ones who aren't ready yet. You're doing this so well. There's a place made for you here too. Nothing is required of you. Nothing has to be earned tonight. You've simply arrived, and that's enough. Let your shoulders come down. Let your hands go heavy. Let the pillow do all of the holding. Where the water is permanent, a bull can hold his stretch for a very long time. Not a season, not a few years. In places where the river never fails, a territorial male may keep the same length of water for decades. In some cases for essentially the whole of his adult life, 20 years or more. Think about that kind of constancy. The same bend of river, the same bank, the same view of the same reeds for 20 years. Generations of calves born in that water and growing up and moving away. The same animal still there, still holding it. There's a deep stillness in a life like that. The females arrange things differently. An adult female usually establishes a home range in the area where she herself was born, the water she grew up in, and her range isn't confined to one bull's stretch. It typically spans the territories of more than one male, overlapping them, crossing between them. So while the bulls hold fixed lines, the females move through and across those lines freely, following their own map, one drawn from memory and birthplace rather than from ownership. Two different ways of belonging to the same river. You're sinking beautifully now. Notice how little you're doing. Notice that your body has already begun to settle without being asked. It knows how to do this. It has done it every night of your life. You can stop paying attention whenever you like. But not all water is permanent. When a river shrinks and the channels start to dry, the territorial bulls simply leave. They don't stand and defend an empty riverbed. There's no ceremony to it, no last stand. The water goes, and the territory goes with it, and the bull walks away to find water somewhere else. All that long, patient ownership released without a fight, the moment the thing being owned stops existing. It's a kind of wisdom, if you want it to be, knowing what's worth holding, and knowing exactly when to let it go. And then everyone has to move. As the daytime resting places dry out, hippos travel beyond their usual ranges, searching for wallows deep enough to lie in. They end up in unfamiliar water, alongside animals they don't know and have no history with, and that unsettles everything. The careful arrangements of the wet season, who rests where, who defers to whom, which stretch belongs to which bull, all of it comes apart. Strangers are suddenly neighbors. The map everyone had memorized no longer applies. Crowding in a species that organizes itself by space. You're doing this exactly right. None of this is happening to you. You are somewhere warm and dry and quiet, and nothing needs to be negotiated tonight. Let your breath go out slowly. Let it take a little tension with it. So the dry season is when hippos fight. Aggression rises steadily as the water shrinks. Animals that had comfortable distance from one another are pressed together into smaller and smaller pools, and the ordinary courtesies of the wet season stop being possible. There isn't enough room to defer. It isn't temper exactly. It's arithmetic. The same number of hippos in a fraction of the water. And this is when the displays turn serious. Through most of the year, hippo conflict is largely performance. The wide yawn, the splash, the rumble, the ritual at the border. In the dry season, the performances stop being enough. Defensive displays intensify, and more of them tip over into actual fighting. Two bulls in shallow water, mouths open, pushing and slashing with the lower tusks. Then the rains return, and the pools refill, and the fighting subsides again. It always subsides. The hard part of the year is genuinely hard, and it genuinely ends. You've had hard stretches too, and they ended. Let that sit for a moment without needing to do anything with it. Let it be a small, warm, uncomplicated fact. Heavy arms, heavy legs, slow breath. The young ones bear most of the cost. In drought, the tolerance disappears first. Dominant bulls turn on the subadult and bachelor males they had allowed to stay all through the good years and drive them out, fighting them, pushing them away from the shrinking pool. Those young males have to disperse to poorer water. Smaller, shallower, muddier pools with fewer of the things a hippo needs. They wait there and they endure it, and if the rains come back in time, so do they. It's the oldest arithmetic there is. When there is less, the ones with least standing are asked to go first. And eventually, the old bull is challenged. A younger male, grown into his full size, comes back and tests him. These are the serious fights, sustained and sometimes injurious, decided in the water between two enormous animals. If the challenger wins, he takes everything. The stretch of river, the resting places, and the breeding access that comes with it. If he loses, he withdraws and waits and grows and returns another year. And every long-tenured bull holding a river tonight was once the young one who came back and won. Every one of them. The stillness at the center of the pod was earned, at some point in loud water. You've stayed with me a long time tonight. You can stop now. There's nothing left to follow. Whatever is unfinished can stay unfinished until the light comes back. We learned that hippopods are sorted, not random. Females together, bachelors together, and the territorial bull largely apart. We learned that those bachelors are tolerated within his territory, as long as they defer and keep away from the females. We found that where water is permanent, a bull may hold the same stretch for 20 years or more, sometimes for his entire adult life, and that adult females do it differently, settling into home ranges in the area where they were born, spanning the territories of several different males. Then the water began to disappear. We learned that bulls abandon territories rather than defend dry channels, and that hippos travel far beyond their usual ranges to find wallows. arriving as strangers and unsettling the whole social order. We learned that aggression peaks in the dry season, when crowding is worst and resources are thinnest, that displays turn into real fighting, and that young bachelor males are the first to be driven out, dispersing to poorer pools. And we learned how it all eventually turns over. A young male returns, challenges the old bull, and if he wins, inherits the water and everything that comes with it. Let all of it go. There's nothing to keep. Rest now. The river is full again, somewhere, and everyone in it is asleep. Let's stay in the shallows a while longer. This next stretch is about how hippos settle their disagreements, which sounds dramatic but is mostly the opposite. Most of what follows is about all the elaborate things hippos do instead of fighting. The gestures, the theater, the long practiced signals that let two enormous animals sort out a difference and then go back to resting. There's a strange peacefulness in it, once you see how much of it is performance. Settle in. Let your breath find its own pace. It starts young, and it starts as play. Around adolescence, somewhere near 7 years old, young males begin sparring with one another. Jaw to jaw in shallow water, pushing and testing. And they hold yawning contests. Two young hippos facing each other, mouths opening wider and wider, gaping at one another to see who can open furthest. Nobody is hurt. Nothing is decided. It's rehearsal, the slow, repeated practice of a language they'll need later, learned in the safety of a pool where the stakes are nothing at all. Years of practicing an argument before ever needing to have one. And the full language is remarkably rich. A hippo warning off a rival has a whole vocabulary to choose from. There's the yawn, that enormous slow gape. There's scooping water up in the mouth and letting it fall. Head shaking, rearing up, lunging forward through the shallows, roaring, grunting, chasing, and a long, loud, wheezing sound that carries far across open water. Any of these can be dialed up or down. A hippo can say, "I'd rather you didn't," or "leave now," using the same basic gestures, adjusted in intensity, and the other hippo understands the difference exactly. An entire diplomacy conducted without a single word. You're doing this beautifully. Nothing needs saying tonight in any language. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, or hold any position, or make yourself understood. Let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the whole front of your face go loose. And here's the important part. Most of the time, the display is the whole encounter. The great majority of hippo confrontations are resolved right there, at the stage of yawning and splashing and rumbling. One animal reads the other, decides the odds aren't good, and withdraws. No contact, no injury. Two enormous bodies in shallow water, and the entire dispute settled by gesture alone. Only when two bulls are genuinely evenly matched, when neither can read the outcome in advance, does it escalate. And even then, escalation is a last resort rather than a first move. Almost all of that fearsome equipment exists precisely so that it doesn't have to be used. But when it is used, it is formidable. In a fight, A bull uses his lower incisors, the front teeth, to block and parry the other animal's blows. And he uses his canines, the long curved tusks at the sides of the jaw, as the offensive weapon, delivering strikes toward the head and neck. Block with the front, strike with the sides. It's more structured than you'd imagine, less a brawl than a contest with rules built into the shape of the skull itself. You're doing so well. You can let the details blur. You don't need to hold on to any of this. It's simply sound now, moving past you, warm and unhurried. Let your hands rest completely. Let your legs get heavier. A serious fight in the water is a long affair. It involves chases through the shallows, mouths locked and grappling, and real bites delivered with tremendous force. Tusk strikes can open deep wounds, and occasionally these encounters prove fatal. They are also rare and brief relative to a hippo's life. A bull may hold his water for 20 years and fight properly only a handful of times. Nearly every day of that long tenure is spent doing nothing more strenuous than lying in warm water, half asleep, being enormous. Hold on to the ratio rather than the drama. Thousands of quiet days and a very small number of loud ones. The bite itself is extraordinary. Measured bite forces in hippos reach around 8,100 newtons, somewhere near 1,800 to 2,000 pounds per square inch. That's greater than the bite of a lion or a tiger, and among the very strongest recorded for any land mammal. It's one of those numbers that doesn't really convert into a picture. Just let it be a fact with weight to it. An animal that spends its day dozing in the shallows, carrying quietly one of the most powerful bites on the continent, and using it almost never. You're sinking nicely now. Notice that you haven't had to do anything at all. Not since we started. The night has simply been happening around you, and you've been allowed to lie inside it. Let it keep happening. You can stop listening whenever you like. Those tusks never stop growing. A hippo's lower canines and incisors grow continuously throughout life, worn down against each other as the jaws close, sharpening themselves in the process. In a large adult, the lower canines can approach 50 centimeters, around 20 inches, which means an old bull carries a record of his own age in his mouth. The longer he has lived, the longer they've grown. Nothing decorative about it, and nothing chosen. Just time, quietly accumulating in ivory. And time leaves other marks as well. Many adult hippos carry deep scars and old cuts across the shoulders, the flanks, the head, the healed evidence of encounters years past. There's something oddly gentle in looking at an old bull resting in the shallows and seeing all of that written on him. Every scar is a fight that ended. Every one of them healed over. He's still here in the same water, dozing in the afternoon sun, with the whole history of his life visible on his back and none of it troubling him now. You're carrying some of that too, and it has all healed over, and none of it is required tonight. You've done well to stay this long. If you're still awake, let this be the part where you stop trying. And if you've already gone, none of this matters anyway. Warm, heavy, still. Two more, and they're both about movement. For all their bulk, hippos are fast. Over short distances on land, a hippo can reach around 30 kilometers an hour, roughly 19 miles per hour, which is quicker than most people can sprint. There's something almost dreamlike in the image. A 3,000-kilogram animal that spends its life lying down, suddenly moving at speed across open ground, all of that mass in motion at once, and then stopping and settling and going back to doing nothing. And they climb. This is the one almost nobody expects. Hippos will climb over fences, up rocky banks, across broken ground. They have been seen clambering over other hippos to get where they're going. Picture that last one properly, because it's very funny and very calming at the same time. A pod of hippos packed into a shallow pool, and one of them simply deciding to go over the top. No hurry, no apology, just a slow, heavy, entirely unbothered scramble across the backs of its sleeping relatives, and down the other side, and on. Nobody minds. Everyone goes back to sleep. We learned that male hippos begin sparring around 7 years old, jaw-to-jaw contests and yawning matches that are really just rehearsal. We met the full repertoire of threat displays. Yawning, scooping water, head shaking, rearing, lunging, roaring, grunting, chasing, and that loud wheezing call. We learned that most confrontations end right there at the display without contact, and that only evenly matched bulls escalate into real fighting. We looked at how that fighting works. Incisors used to block, canines used to strike at the head and neck. Chases, mouth grappling, powerful bites, and wounds that are occasionally fatal. We learned that the hippo bite reaches around 8,100 newtons, stronger than a big cat's and among the highest of any land mammal, and that the lower canines grow continuously through life, reaching close to 50 centimeters in a big adult. We saw the scars that all of this leaves behind on so many older animals, every one of them healed. And we finished on the move. A top speed of around 30 kilometers an hour over short distances, faster than most humans can run, and an unexpected talent for climbing over fences, rocks, and one another. Let all of it go. There's nothing to keep. Rest now. The water is warm, nobody is fighting, and everyone is asleep. Halfway, this next stretch begins with the part of the hippo that people are most wary of, and then moves somewhere quieter into how hippo families come to exist at all and who gets to start one. Some of it is a little serious. None of it is anything to worry about from here. You are nowhere near a river, and nothing in this room is going to ask anything of you. Let your breathing go slow and even. A territorial bull will defend his water from anything that enters it, including a boat. Small craft that pass through an occupied stretch of river may be charged, and a hippo of that size can capsize a canoe or a small boat without difficulty, sometimes with serious consequences for the people in it. It's worth understanding what's actually happening, though, because it isn't malice. It isn't hunting. It's territory. The bull has spent years holding that particular 100 meters of river, and something large has just moved into the middle of it. He responds the way he'd respond to another hippo. To him, a boat is simply a rival who has failed to read the signals. And this is why hippos are treated with such caution. Hippos are responsible for more human deaths in Africa each year than lions or elephants. Not because they hunt people, they don't, but because they're powerful, easily startled, and unpredictable, and because so much human activity happens right at the water's edge, which is exactly where a hippo is least willing to be approached. The advice that follows from this is simple and rather calming in its way. Give them room. Stay out of the water they've claimed. Don't stand between a hippo and the river at night. Almost every serious incident comes from crossing a line the animal considers obvious. Respect the boundary, and the hippo has no argument with you. You're doing this beautifully. There's no boundary to negotiate here. Nothing in this room needs watching. The doors are shut, the night is doing what nights do, and you are entirely safe. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the bed take all of it. Mothers defend their calves, and they do it cleverly. When a female needs to drive off a bull who has come too close to her young, she often doesn't meet him the way bulls meet each other. The male ritual is head-on. Two animals squared up, mouths open, facing one another directly. She refuses that. She comes in from the side instead, striking at the flank, ignoring the choreography entirely. And it works far better because he's built and practiced for a fight that isn't happening. A smaller animal declining to play by rules that were designed to favor someone else. The reason she has to is harder. Some adult male hippos will kill juveniles, infanticide, which occurs in a number of mammal species. A female who loses a calf returns to breeding conditions sooner, which can create an opportunity for the male that would not otherwise exist. It's a bleak piece of arithmetic, and it's one of the reasons that a mother's vigilance is so absolute, and why she'll place herself between her calf and a bull without hesitation, every time. Let that one pass through and keep going. It doesn't need to be held. You're doing so well. Nothing here needs solving. Nature is not asking you to approve of it, and there is nothing you're required to feel about any of this tonight. Let your breath go out a little longer than it came in. Let your hands go heavy. Common hippos are polygynous. Within a pod, one territorial bull mates with the several cows who live in his stretch of water. He isn't paired to any one of them, and they aren't bound to him. They simply share the same length of river, and he holds it. So the social structure we walked through earlier turns out to be a reproductive structure as well. The water, the territory, the arrangement of who rests where, it's all connected to this. Females reproduce roughly once every 2 years. There's a long, unhurried spacing to hippo life. A calf is born, raised, weaned, and grown to some independence before the next arrives. And the bull mates with whichever cows in his territory come into estrus, as and when they do. 2 years per calf. It's a slow way to build a population, and it suits an animal that lives for decades in the same water. Nothing about a hippo's life is in a rush, including this. You're sinking nicely now. Nothing about tonight is in a rush either. There's no schedule for falling asleep, and no way to do it wrong. It arrives when it arrives. Let your legs be heavy. Let your face be soft. Let the room get further away. And there's no breeding season. Male hippos produce mobile sperm continuously, all year round, which means breeding isn't confined to a narrow window the way it is for many animals. It can happen at any point in the year, whenever a female is receptive. So there's no dramatic annual season for hippos, no sudden concentration of activity, no single month when everything happens at once. Just a slow, continuous, year-round turning over. Calves arriving throughout the year, in ones and twos, into water that looks much the same in every season it can. Females reach sexual maturity at around 10 years old. Males mature earlier physically, but that turns out to matter much less than you'd expect. Because for a male hippo, being physically capable of breeding and actually breeding are two entirely different things, separated by many years and one very large obstacle. Which brings us to the last two, and they're the ones that quietly explain everything else in this segment. You're doing this exactly right. You've stayed with me through 60 of these now. That's a long time to lie still and listen, and you've done it easily. Warm, heavy, slow. To mate, a bull needs a territory. Holding a stretch of water is effectively the price of entry. Non-territorial bulls, and that's the great majority of them, something like 90%, are largely excluded from breeding altogether. They live in the pod. They're tolerated in the shallows. They graze the same lawns at night, and they don't reproduce. All of that ritual we walked through, the yawning, the dung showering, the borders, the challenges, sits on top of this single fact. The water isn't a luxury. It's the whole thing. So the outcomes are extraordinarily uneven. The bulls holding the most desirable territories, the deepest, safest, most reliable water, father a very large share of the next generation. Meanwhile, most male hippos, over an entire lifetime of 20 years or more, sire no offspring at all. And here's what I'd rather leave you with. Those males are not living failed lives. They graze the same grass. They rest in the same warm shallows. They spend their days doing exactly what every other hippo does, which is very little, extremely comfortably in water. There's a whole population of enormous animals out there, most of them entirely outside the competition, floating peacefully through it all. You can be one of those tonight. Nothing to win, nothing to hold. Just warm water and a long, slow afternoon. We learned that territorial bulls will charge and capsize small boats that enter their stretch of river, not as predators but as landowners. And that hippos cause more human deaths in Africa each year than lions or elephants, largely through territorial aggression near water. We learned that mothers defending calves attack bulls from the side rather than meeting them head-on in the male ritual, which makes them more effective. And why that defense matters. Some adult males kill juveniles to bring the mother back into breeding condition sooner. Then the structure of it all. Hippos are polygynous, one territorial bull mating with the several cows in his stretch of water. Females reproduce about once every 2 years. Males produce mobile sperm continuously, so breeding happens year-round rather than in a season. Females reach maturity around 10 years old. And finally, the thing that governs all of it. Holding a water territory is effectively a prerequisite for mating, leaving something like 90% of bulls out of the running. So a small number of males holding the best water father most of the calves, and most males father none. Let all of it go. There's nothing to keep and nothing to work out. Rest now. The water is warm and the night is still long. This next stretch is about timing, the calendar a hippo lives by, and the way the whole rhythm of birth and rain and grass fits together across a year. It's a gentle one. Mostly it's about how a river population arranges itself around the seasons without ever deciding to, and about the odd, honking courtship that happens in the middle of it. Let your breath settle into something long and slow. Hippos mate in the water. Not at the edge, not on the bank. In it, in the shallows where a hippo's weight stops being a problem. And within a given stretch of river, the territorial bull is thought to monopolize access to the receptive females there, which is the whole point of holding the water in the first place. Everything we walked through in the last segment, the borders, the displays, the 20-year tenures, resolves into this. The territory is the access, almost exclusively in the water, in fact. Mating on land does happen, but it's rare and opportunistic when it does, not the normal way of things. And it makes sense when you think about the physics. A hippo weighs enormously. On dry ground, all of that mass has to be carried by legs and joints and hard earth. In water, it mostly disappears. The river takes the weight, holds both animals up, and makes possible something that would otherwise be difficult and stressful. Water does that for hippos over and over. It carries them, it cools them, it keeps their skin whole, it hides them, it carries their voices. And this too, you're doing this beautifully. Something is holding your weight right now as well. The bed has taken all of it without asking, and it will keep holding it all night. You can stop bracing. Let the mattress do the work. Let your back sink into it and your shoulders and the backs of your legs. Females are seasonally polyestrous, and the window is narrow. A female cycles more than once across the breeding period, and each estrus lasts about 3 days. 3 days within a year of 365. And that's exactly why crowding matters. Mating peaks when the herds concentrate, when shrinking water pushes animals into shared pools in the dry season, and far more hippos are close together than usual. The same crowding that raises tempers also raises the odds that a 3-day window and an available bull will overlap. The difficult season and the fertile season turn out to be the same season. So breeding tends to fall at the end of the dry months, toward the very end of the dry season and into the first rains. That's when most of it happens. And it isn't a decision anyone makes. It's simply where the pressure of the year pushes everyone at once. If you follow the timing forward, though, you can see what it produces. Conceive as the dry season closes and the calves arrive later into a landscape that has completely changed. You're doing so well. Nothing needs following. If you've lost the thread of the seasons entirely, that's a good sign, not a bad one. Let your jaw go slack. Let your hands go completely still. Let your breathing get shallower and slower on its own. Because the calves arrive in the wet. That's the whole elegance of it. The breeding season is tied to the dry season precisely so that most births land in the wettest part of the year, when the floodplains have refilled, when the hippo lawns have grown back thick and green, and when there is more food available than at any other time. A mother nursing a newborn needs a great deal of grass. And she gets it because the timing arranged itself generation after generation until the calves came in the abundance rather than the scarcity. Nobody planned it. It's just what survived. And it shows up clearly in the numbers. Although mating can occur at any point in the year, conceptions peak between February and August, the dry months, and births cluster between October and April through the wet season. There's something restful in the plainness of that. A whole species arranging its arrivals into a window year after year without a calendar between them. Simply the rains coming and the grass growing and the calves being born into it. You're sinking nicely now. You don't have to keep track of anything. Not months, not names, not numbers. Let them dissolve. They were never the point. Warm, heavy, still. Courtship comes with a sound. The bull's wheeze honk. It's a strange call. A long, loud, wheezing honk that carries far across the water, and it does a couple of things at once. It signals his intent toward the female, and it broadcasts his standing to everyone else within earshot. If you've heard a hippo recording, you've heard it. That rolling, honking, almost laughing series of notes, rising and falling across a flat river in the early evening. It's one of the most distinctive sounds in Africa, and it belongs more often than not to a bull with something to say. And he keeps announcing it. During mating itself, the male gives that same distinctive wheezy honk, a sound made throughout, audible across the whole pod. There's nothing private about it. Every hippo in that stretch of water knows exactly what is happening and who is doing it, which is presumably at least partly the point. A public statement from the animal who holds the river that he still holds it. Sound traveling out across warm water in the dusk, and everybody hearing it, and nobody minding. You're doing this exactly right. Nothing is being asked of you. No one is listening for you or waiting on you or expecting anything before morning. Let your face soften. Let your shoulders drop one more inch. There's a visual side to the courtship, too. Males advertise their readiness the same way they advertise ownership, by scattering dung and urine, spinning the tail to fling it wide across the bank and the water. It serves double duty. It marks the territory, and it makes the bull conspicuous. A clear signal both to rival males and to the females in his stretch. that he is here in condition holding this water. Not subtle, entirely effective, and in peak mating periods it becomes directed. At the height of the season, a bull will urinate and defecate at the same time, then spin his tail rapidly to spray the mixture outward, toward the females in particular. It's a display aimed at getting attention, and it works. I'd like you to picture the whole scene as you drift, because it is genuinely absurd and genuinely peaceful at the same time. A wide, warm river at dusk reeds along the bank, a pod of enormous animals lying half submerged, doing nothing, and one very large bull, honking and wheezing across the water, spinning his tail like a propeller, thoroughly convinced of himself, and everyone else simply resting, unbothered, letting him get on with it. You've stayed a long time tonight. You can go now. There's nothing after this that needs you. We learned that hippos mate in the water, and that the territorial bull is thought to monopolize access to receptive females within his stretch. That mating on land is rare and opportunistic. The water does the work of holding all that weight. We learned that females are seasonally polyestrous with an estrus of about 3 days, and that mating peaks when shrinking water concentrates the herds in the dry season. That breeding falls at the end of the dry months and the start of the rains, so that births land in the wet season when forage is thickest, and that the numbers bear it out. Conceptions peaking February through August, births clustering October through April. Then the courtship itself. The males wheeze honking, signaling intent and dominance. That same wheezy honk given during mating, announcing it to the whole pod. The scattering of dung and urine with a spinning tail to advertise readiness. And at the peak of the season, that spray directed outward toward the females, as conspicuous a display as an animal can make. Let all of it go. There's nothing to keep. Rest now. The rains are coming. The grass is growing, and none of it needs you awake. This next stretch stays close to the water's surface. The small signals hippos exchange when a female comes into season, and the few days of activity that follow. Some of it is rough, the way animal courtship often is. I'll tell you plainly and we'll move on. And it ends somewhere lovely, so stay with me if you can, and if you can't, that's fine too. Let your breath go long and easy. It begins with smell. A dominant bull moving through his stretch of water checks the females as he goes, sniffing at the hindquarters, sampling the urine, reading each one in turn for the chemical signs of estrus. He can't see it. There's no visible change to look for. So he uses the sense hippos have always relied on most. The same sense that lets them recognize a neighbor from a stranger by dung alone. He simply moves slowly through the shallows, checking, and gathering information nobody else can perceive. Patient, unhurried, entirely thorough, and the female has signals of her own. A receptive female may approach the male directly, nudging him, rubbing against him beneath the surface, making contact where nothing can be seen from above. It's quiet, this part. Two enormous animals in warm, murky water, brushing past each other, exchanging something. From the bank you'd see nothing at all. Just a still pool with a few dark backs in it, and no indication that anything is being decided. So much of hippo life happens where nobody can watch it. You're doing this beautifully. Nothing is happening where you are. No signals to send, no signals to read. The room is exactly as it was an hour ago and will be exactly the same in an hour's time. Let your shoulders come down. Let your hands go heavy. Let your breath do whatever it wants. What follows is a pursuit. The bull works to separate his chosen female from the rest of the herd, taunting her, pushing at her, driving her away from the group and out toward deeper water. He follows her there, and she often resists, and the resistance takes the form of clashing jaws. The two of them turning on each other in open water, mouths meeting. It's not a gentle courtship, and it isn't meant to look like one. Among hippos, this is simply how it goes. Pursuit, refusal, pursuit again in deep water at a distance from everyone else. And then the mating itself, which is forceful. The male brings the female into submission and mounts her, and he holds her head beneath the surface. If she lifts it to breathe, he pushes it down again. That's the plain description, and I'll leave it at that. It's difficult to read the behavior of another species by our own standards, and mostly the attempt tells us more about ourselves than about the animal. It happens. It's documented. It's part of how hippos reproduce. We'll move on. None of this needs to be carried. Facts can arrive and pass on through without leaving anything behind. Let that one drift off downstream. Let your jaw unclench. Let the back of your neck go soft. Let the bed take the weight of your head completely. The posture itself is almost entirely submerged. Through copulation, the female stays mostly beneath the surface, lifting only her nostrils clear from time to time to take a breath, while the male remains positioned behind her. Which means that all of this, the whole business, is nearly invisible from the bank. Patch of water moving slightly, a pair of nostrils appearing and disappearing. Everything else hidden beneath a flat brown surface. The same water that hides them all day, hiding this too, and it can go on a long while. A single bout may last up to about 30 minutes. Alternatively, there are brief mounts, half a minute or so, repeated many times across several days. Long and slow or short and often. Hippos do both, and neither one appears to be in any particular hurry, which by now should not surprise you at all. Very little about a hippo is in a hurry. You're sinking nicely now. You have nothing to attend to. No stretch of time that needs filling, no next thing waiting. Just this for as long as it lasts, and then sleep. Warm, heavy, slow. The bull stays with her for days. Once a female is receptive, he remains close, mating repeatedly over that period, and spending much of the rest of his energy keeping other males away from her. He becomes, for those few days, entirely occupied. It's the one stretch of a bull's life that isn't restful. All that time spent lying in warm shallows doing nothing, and then a short window in which he barely stops. And it all turns on 3 days. The female's estrus is brief, around 3 days, and that brevity is what makes the whole thing so intense. There's no leisure in it, no second chance next week. Competition among the males concentrates entirely into that narrow window, and then subsides again. 3 days of noise in a river that spends the rest of the year almost silent above the surface. Then everyone goes back to lying in the water, and the water goes back to looking like nothing is happening in it at all. You're doing this exactly right. You've stayed with me a long time tonight, and there's nothing left that needs your attention. Whatever is unfinished will still be there tomorrow, and will look smaller then. Let your face soften completely. Now, the last two are the good ones. A female who is interested in a bull may answer his display in kind. He performs his tail spray, that spinning, scattering advertisement we met last time, and she showers him right back with her own. A reciprocal signal. He makes a statement and she returns it in exactly the same currency. There's something almost courteous about it, in a way that only makes sense if you're a hippo. Two enormous animals in a warm river, flinging dung at one another as a form of agreement. Nothing about it is subtle, and both of them understand it perfectly. And sometimes they circle. A pair will turn slowly in the water, head to tail, moving around one another in a continuous loop. And as they go, the water begins to turn with them, until a small whirlpool forms between their bodies. It's a quiet piece of pre-mating behavior, and hardly a dramatic one. Just two animals rotating slowly in a warm pool, and the river beginning to spin gently around the space between them. That's the picture I'd like to leave you with tonight. Late light on flat brown water. Reeds along the bank, not moving. Two dark shapes turning slowly, head to tail, and a small spiral of current forming and unwinding between them. Round and round and round. Let yourself turn with it. Slow, warm, weightless. We learned that dominant bulls assess receptivity by scent, sniffing at each female and at her urine to detect estrus. That receptive females signal back, approaching the male and nudging or rubbing against him beneath the surface. We followed the courtship out into deep water, the male separating a female from the herd and pursuing her until she resists with clashing jaws, and the forceful mating that follows, with the female held under and surfacing only to breathe. We learned the posture. The female largely submerged, lifting just her nostrils clear, the male behind her. And the timing, bouts of up to about 30 minutes, or brief mounts of half a minute repeated many times over several days. We learned that a bull stays with a receptive female for days, mating repeatedly while driving off rivals. All of it compressed into an estrus lasting only about 3 days, which is why the competition around it runs so hot. And we finished with two gentler things. The female's reciprocal tail spray, answering his display with her own, and the slow head-to-tail circling that turns the water between a pair into a small whirlpool. Rest now. The water is still turning slowly, and it doesn't need you awake to do it. This next stretch is the gentlest one yet. It's about calves, how long they take to arrive, how they're born, and their first few seconds of life in the water. If you're gonna fall asleep tonight, this is a good place to do it. Nothing in this segment is difficult. It's all warm, shallow water and new arrivals. Let your breathing slow right down. Hippos space their calves out over a long stretch of time. After giving birth, a female typically doesn't ovulate again for around 17 months. Not because anything prevents her, but because that's simply how her body arranges the interval. A long quiet period given over entirely to the calf she already has. And that's what really sets the rhythm. It's not the pregnancy that spaces hippo births apart. It's this. 17 months of no next thing coming. A year and a half in which one calf is the whole task. An unhurried species being unhurried again. The pregnancy itself is about 8 months. Gestation runs somewhere between 227 and 240 days, roughly 7.5 to 8 months. Some sources put it a little longer, at 243 to 252. The average lands around 240 days, which, for an animal of that size, is remarkably brief. An elephant carries a calf for nearly 2 years. A hippo, third largest land mammal on Earth, does it in 8 months, quietly, mostly while lying in a river. You're doing this beautifully. 8 months is a long time to carry something. You've carried things for longer. Whatever you're still holding tonight, you can set it down for a few hours. It'll keep. Let your shoulders drop. Let your arms be heavy. Let your hands fall open. Almost always there's just one. Hippos give birth to a single calf. Twins do occur, but they're rare, unusual enough to be noted when they happen. One calf carried for 8 months, followed by 17 months of undivided attention. Everything about hippo reproduction points the same direction. Not many, not fast, but thoroughly. There's a kind of confidence in that. An animal large enough and long-lived enough that it doesn't need to hedge. And they arrive already substantial. A newborn hippo weighs somewhere between 25 and 55 kilograms, around 55 to 120 pounds, with some reports up to 60. And it's about 1.25 meters long at birth, which is to say, a newborn hippo is roughly the size of a grown person and heavier than many. On its very first day, picture that in the shallows, a brand new animal, already the size of an adult human, standing in warm water beside a mother 20 or 30 times its weight, small only by comparison. You're doing so well. There's no comparison being made here. Nothing in this room is measuring anything about you tonight. Let your jaw soften. Let the space between your eyebrows go loose. Let the pillow take the whole weight of your head. They're born hind legs first. In most mammals that would be called a breech presentation, the wrong way round, the risky way. For hippos, it's simply how it's done. Back legs, then body, then head, last of all. And once you know where they're born, it makes complete sense. We'll get there in a moment. For now, just hold the small strangeness of it. An entire species arriving into the world backwards on purpose, and it working perfectly well every time. because they're usually born in the water. The mother gives birth in the shallows and the calf arrives underwater, which means the very first thing it must do, in the first moments of its life, is get to the surface and take a breath. Nobody teaches it. It simply goes up. And there's something else the calf can do straight away. Because those nostrils and ears seal shut when submerged, a hippo calf can nurse underwater, closing off, latching on, feeding beneath the surface, and lifting clear only to breathe. Its first meal, taken with its whole head underwater, perfectly calm about it. You're sinking nicely now. Everything is being taken care of. There's nothing you need to do first, nothing you need to remember to do. It's all handled. Warm, heavy, slow. Birthing in water is easier on the mother. All that weight she carries on land simply lifts away in the shallows. The same buoyancy that lets hippos walk along riverbeds and mate in deep pools also supports her through labor. She's not fighting gravity at the same time. The water holds her, and she conserves energy she'd otherwise spend just holding herself up. It's the same gift the river keeps giving. Cool skin, hidden body, carried voice, and now this, something enormous, made light at the moment it matters most. Though not every calf is born in the water. Females do give birth on land when conditions favor it, on the bank in dense vegetation, somewhere sheltered. It's less typical, but it isn't unusual or distressed. She's comfortable either way, which is rather reassuring. For all the specialization, there's no single correct way for a hippo to be born. Water if the water suits, land if the land does. Both work. You're doing this exactly right. There's no correct way to do tonight either. Awake or asleep, following along or drifting off entirely. All of it counts as resting. Let your legs get heavier. Let your breath get shallower and slower on its own. If the calf is born underwater, the mother helps immediately. Within seconds, she pushes it up to the surface for its first breath, nosing it upward through the water, lifting it clear into the air. It's one of the first things she does, and she does it fast. Picture the whole small moment. A quiet stretch of shallow river. A large dark shape below the surface, and something new beside her. And then a nose breaking through into the warm air, and a first breath taken, and the mother's head surfacing right alongside it. Nothing dramatic, no sound to speak of, just water closing over again, and two animals where there was one. And for a while, the calf can't stay down long. A newborn hippo can hold its breath only about 40 to 90 seconds at a time, a fraction of the 5 minutes or so an adult manages. So its early life is punctuated down for a little, up for air, down again, up again, over and over through the day. It has to surface constantly while the adults around it lie submerged for minutes on end. It'll grow into it, but at first it just keeps bobbing up. A small head appearing beside its resting mother, again and again all afternoon. There's something very tender in that image, and I'd like you to take it with you. Warm brown water, low sun, a row of enormous animals lying perfectly still, barely breaking the surface, and one small head rising and sinking beside them. You've stayed a long time tonight. You can go now. We learned that after giving birth, a female usually doesn't ovulate again for around 17 months, which is what really spaces hippo calves apart. That gestation runs about 240 days on average, roughly 7.5 to 8 months. We learned that hippos almost always have a single calf, with twins rare. That a newborn weighs between 25 and 55 kilograms, sometimes up to 60, and measures about 1.25 meters long. And that calves are born hind legs first, a breech presentation that's entirely normal for the species. We learned that births usually happen in the water, with the newborn swimming straight up for its first breath, and that it can nurse underwater thanks to those sealing nostrils and ears. That birthing in water saves the mother energy by taking her weight. And that land births happen too whenever conditions suit. We watched the mother push her calf to the surface within seconds of an underwater birth. And we learned that a newborn can only hold its breath for 40 to 90 seconds, against an adult's 5 minutes. So it spends its first weeks surfacing again and again beside a mother who barely has to move. Let all of it go. There's nothing to keep. Rest now. The calf is breathing, the water is warm, and everything is exactly as it should be. The last 10. If you're still awake for this, that's all right. And if you're not, it doesn't matter in the slightest, because there's nothing left in this video that you need. This final stretch is about growing up. The first minutes of a calf's life, the years that follow, and how long a hippo lives. And then, at the very end, we're going to go back to where we started and finish the way hippos finish every day. Let your breath go long. Let everything soften. Here are the last 10. Calves can move almost immediately. Within minutes of being born, a hippo calf can walk, can run, can swim, not well and not far, but functionally straight away on the first day of its life. There's no long wobbling apprenticeship. It arrives, it takes a breath, and then it simply gets on with the business of being a hippo. Legs work, water works, everything it needs is already installed. An animal that will spend the next 40 years doing very little, doing all of it competently within the first 10 minutes. And it can feed beneath the surface. We touched on this before, but it's worth sitting with properly. A calf nurses underwater. Nostrils sealed, ears closed, latched on beneath the surface, taking milk with its whole head submerged. Think about the coordination that requires from something newborn. Close everything off. Feed, hold, rise for air, sink again, repeat. There's no fuss in it, no struggle. It's simply how a hippo eats its first meals, in the quiet green, holding its breath entirely at ease. You're doing this beautifully. You've been at ease for a while now, whether or not you noticed. Your breathing has slowed. Your body has gone heavier than it was when we started. Let it go further. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands rest completely open. The mother gives up eating for a while. For the first several days, she stays in the water with her newborn and doesn't feed at all. No night grazing, no 10-kilometer walks inland. She waits until the calf is strong enough to make that trip beside her. Remember that reserve she carries. 2 days worth of grass in the stomach, and the capacity to go weeks without food when she has to. This is what that's for. A body built to be able to stop and stay and wait. She simply remains in the shallows with her calf, going hungry until it's ready, and she keeps it away from everyone. Cows give birth in seclusion, apart from the herd, and stay out on their own for something like 10 to 14 days before returning. 2 weeks alone in a quiet stretch of water with a single new animal. It's a bonding period, and it's the most private time in a hippo's whole social life. A species that spends its days piled together in pods, deliberately removing itself for a fortnight. Then she comes back, and the calf comes with her, and it takes its place among the others. You're doing so well. There's a version of that available tonight. A quiet, private stretch of hours where nobody needs anything from you and nothing has to be shared. That's what this is. Let it be as private as you like. Let the rest of the world stay outside the door. In those first days, she is fiercely defensive. For roughly 10 days after giving birth, a mother will attack any hippo that comes near her calf, not just strangers. Any hippo, including the territorial bull who holds the water she's lying in. Everything else about hippo society, the deference, the rank, the careful arrangements of who yields to whom, is simply suspended. She outranks all of it for those 10 days. And every other animal in that river understands it and keeps its distance. Absolute, unnegotiable, and temporary. And then a long, slow childhood. Calves stay with their mothers for years, often several, and in some cases up to around 7, before becoming fully independent. That's a substantial portion of a hippo's life spent alongside the animal that bore it. 7 years of following her out at dusk, learning the paths, learning the grazing, learning which water is whose. Not taught exactly, just accompanied for a very long time until it's known. You're sinking nicely now. You don't need to learn anything else tonight. There's nothing left to take in. Let the words become sound. Let the sound become distance. Warm, heavy, slow. Which means a mother often travels with several at once. Because calves stay so long, and births come every couple of years, a cow may move with as many as 3 offspring of different ages trailing her. And they travel in order. The youngest stays closest, right at her heels. The middle one follows behind. And the eldest brings up the rear. That's the image I want you to hold as we come to the end. A warm night, a worn path through the grass, and 4 hippos walking it in single file. Smallest to largest, nose to tail, unhurried, in the dark. Nobody organized it. That's simply the order they fall into every night. Hippos live a long time. In the wild, a hippo lives roughly 36 to 40 years. In captivity, protected from drought and rivals and injury, some reach around 50. 40 years in the same river. 40 years of the same bend, the same reeds, the same warm shallows, the same slow walk inland at dusk. Long enough to see calves born and grown and gone, and their calves after them. A very long, very quiet life. You've stayed with me all the way to the end. That's 100 facts. You didn't have to remember any of them, and I hope you didn't. That was never what this was for. Let your face be soft. Let your breathing be whatever it is. And now the last two, and they're not new. We met them at the very beginning of tonight, and we're going to end where we started, because this is what hippos do every single day of those 40 years. At dusk, they leave the water. They graze for 4 or 5 hours in the dark, walking as far as 10 kilometers, tearing 35 to 50 kilograms of grass with those muscular lips. All night, out on the lawns, the soft, steady sound of grazing. And before dawn, they come home to the river. They sink into the warm shallows, seal their nostrils, close their ears, and sleep beneath the surface. They can hold their breath 5 minutes, some say 7. And while they sleep, their bodies rise on their own to breathe and settle again over and over without ever waking them. That's the whole of it. Graze in the dark, sleep in the water, rise to breathe without waking, sink again. Every night, for 40 years. Let yourself do the same. Your body is already handling the breathing. It has been all night. It will keep going whether you're here for it or not. We learned that calves can walk, run and swim within minutes of birth, and that they nurse underwater with their nostrils and ears sealed shut. We learned that mothers stay in the water without feeding for several days after giving birth, waiting until the calf is strong enough to graze. That they give birth in seclusion and rejoin the herd only after 10 to 14 days. And that for about 10 days they'll attack any hippo who comes close, including the territorial bull. We learned that calves remain with their mothers for years, up to around 7, and that a cow may travel with 3 of different ages behind her, youngest closest, eldest at the rear, and that hippos live 36 to 40 years in the wild, and up to about 50 in captivity. And we ended where we began, out of the water at dusk to graze for 4 or 5 hours, back before dawn, to sleep beneath the surface, surfacing to breathe without ever waking. That's 100. We started with a name, Hippopotamus, river horse, from the Greek. We learned they're related to whales, that they can't swim, that they walk along riverbeds and sleep underwater, that they make their own sunscreen, that they talk to each other in the water where we can't hear it. We followed them out to the lawns at night and back again. We watched them hold territories for 20 years and lose them to drought and pass them on to younger animals. We watched calves being born tail first into warm, shallow water and pushed up to the surface for a first breath. And now it's finished, and you can let all of it go. There's nothing to remember, nothing to carry into tomorrow. All of those hippos are still out there, somewhere lying in warm brown water, doing almost nothing at all, and they'll go on doing it whether anyone is watching or not. Let your body be heavy. Let the bed hold all of it. Let your breath rise and fall on its own, the way theirs does, without you needing to be there for it. Good night. Sleep well.